Hello and welcome to Am Writing Fantasy. My name is Jesper. Today we're going through the pages of best-selling books to unlock their secret ingredients. What elements do they have that makes them so irresistible to readers? You see, creating a bestseller isn't a guaranteed science, but there are certain elements that many bestsellers share. The first one is having a compelling protagonist. We're talking about that unforgettable character that leaps off the page and into the hearts of readers. Creating a compelling protagonist is about far more than assigning them a cool name, a unique appearance, or a quirky habit. It's about making them feel real, multidimensional, and above all, relatable. So start by asking yourself, what does my protagonist want? And I don't just mean in the broad sense of the overall story, but in every single scene. A character's desires can be simple, like seeking shelter from a storm, or complex, like striving to become the world's greatest wizard. Regardless of the scale, this desire must drive your character's actions and fuel the narrative. Next, consider your protagonist's internal and external conflicts. External conflicts often come from the situation or antagonist that your character faces, like a dragon burning in their village, for example. But the best characters also have internal conflict, like personal struggles, self-doubts, fears that counterbalance their external goals. Maybe our would-be wizard is afraid of fire due to a childhood incident, making his fight with the dragon all that more dramatic and meaningful. Then there's growth. A compelling protagonist isn't static. They grow, learn, and change over the course of the story, shaped by their experiences. This character development keeps readers invested and adds a satisfying depth to the narrative. Finally, give your protagonist a voice. Not just in terms of how they speak, but how they think and perceive the world around them. Your protagonist's unique voice is what will make them truly stand out and linger in your readers' memories. Let's look at an example. Harry Potter, for instance, starts out as an unloved boy living under the stairs, dreaming of a better life. His external goal becomes defeating Voldemort, while his internal struggles include feelings of loneliness, fear, and a sense of not fully belonging in the wizarding world. Throughout the series, Harry grows, learns about bravery, friendship, and sacrifice, and develops a strong, distinct voice that resonates with readers. If you need a thorough and in-depth guidance, I recently created an entire video series where we explore plotting and character creation using the Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien as an example. I'll put a link to that video series in the description if you need more help, but do remember that creating a compelling protagonist is a complex task. It's one that lies at the heart of every great story. So, take the time to build your protagonist from the ground up, and you will have the first key ingredient in your recipe for a bestseller. Moving on to the second element of best-selling stories, high stakes. High stakes are what keep readers turning the pages into the night, desperate to find out what happens next. It's that sense of urgency and importance that makes a story impossible to put down. Now, when we talk about high stakes, we don't necessarily mean like the fate of the world has to hang in the balance, although, of course, it certainly can, but high stakes can also be like deeply personal, related to the character's deepest fears and desires. Consider the classic novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. The stakes aren't global or even national, but they are high because they are deeply personal and connected to the characters and the community. The trial of Tom Robinson isn't just about one man's fate. It's about justice, integrity, and the fight against racial prejudice in a small southern town. Contrast this with the Game of Thrones series by George R. R. Martin. The stakes there are indeed about the fate of kingdoms and the lives of thousands. Each character's actions could tip the balance of power and determine who lives and who dies. Whether your stakes are personal or grand, the key is to make them matter deeply to your protagonist. If your protagonist doesn't care about the outcome, neither will your readers. So make it clear what could happen if the protagonist fails. Will they lose their life, their sanity, the person they love most, the chance to redeem themselves? I don't know, but to enhance the sense of stakes, you can include time pressures or dilemmas. Maybe your hero only has 24 hours to prevent a disaster, or perhaps they're forced to choose between saving their sibling or stopping the villain. Also remember to keep raising the stakes as your story progresses. The situation should become more and more complex, the consequences of failure more severe, and the challenges more daunting. This keeps the tension high and your readers engaged throughout. In short, high stakes make your readers care about your story. They add tension, propel your plot, and make your characters' victories all the more sweet. And their failures all that more devastating, obviously. On to our third crucial element of a best-selling story, and that is conflict. Conflict is the engine that drives your plot and the catalyst that sparks change and growth in your characters. It's the obstacles that your protagonist must overcome to achieve their goals, and it's what keeps the readers hooked. When we speak about conflict, we often think about external types of conflict, like man versus man, man versus nature, man versus society, and so on. In 1984, by George Orwell, for example, we see a classic case of man versus society, where Winston Smith fights against the oppressive regime of Big Brother. While external conflict is crucial, don't forget about internal conflict, those personal battles that your characters waged within themselves. These could stem from their fears, desires, past traumas, or moral dilemmas. These internal conflicts often connect to your character's arc and the theme of your story. Take a Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin, for instance. Jaime Lannister's character undergoes a massive internal conflict. He wrestles with his identity as the Kingslayer, the loss of his sword hand, and his evolving sense of honor versus his family loyalty. This internal struggle makes Jaime one of the most complex and compelling characters in the series, and that's actually whether you like him or not. Remember, the best conflicts are those that are deeply personal to your characters. It's not enough for your protagonist to save the world just because it's the right thing to do. Maybe they're saving it for their little sister, who they promised they would always protect. Or maybe they're saving it to prove themselves that they're not that coward they always thought they were. Also consider intertwining your internal and external conflicts. Maybe your protagonist is afraid of water and now they must cross a raging river to deliver the magic amulet. Or they have a crippling fear of failure and they are the only doctor left in a pandemic-stricken city. As your story progresses, keep upping the conflict. Throw unexpected obstacles at your protagonist, introduce surprising twists, challenge your protagonist's beliefs. The greater the conflict, the more satisfying the resolution will be when your protagonist finally overcomes their obstacles and achieves their goal. In conclusion, a story without conflict is like a car without fuel. It's conflict that propels your story forward and gives your characters their purpose. So embrace the conflict and watch your story come alive. Our fourth ingredient for a bestseller brew is in immersive world building. Whether your story is set in a high fantasy kingdom, a gritty sci-fi universe, or a small town in the middle of nowhere, your world needs to be vividly realized and thoroughly crafted. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to spend pages and pages and pages describing every leaf of every tree and every brick in every building. Instead, focus on the details that make your world unique and that influence your characters and the plot. Let's start with the physical aspects. What does your world look like? What's the geography, the climate, the architecture? How do these impact the lifestyles, the cultures, the struggles, and aspirations of your characters? In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth is so carefully crafted that it becomes a character in itself. From the Lost Shire to the desolate Mordor, the physical world not only sets the tone and atmosphere, but also shapes the events and the characters. The perilous journey to Mount Doom wouldn't have been so treacherous and transformative if it weren't for the formidable geography of Middle-earth. But world building isn't just about landscapes and cityscapes. It's about society and culture. What are the social norms and taboos? What's the political structure? What kind of technology or magic is available, and how does it affect everyday life? Take the Dune series by Frank Herbert, for example. The desert planet of Arrakis, with its deadly sandworms and precious spice, shapes the societal structures, power dynamics, and even the religious beliefs of its inhabitants. Also consider the history of your world. Past events can have a significant impact on the present situation of your characters and their world. Conflicts, revolutions, discoveries, all these can add depth and richness to your world. To ensure your world feels real, infuse it with sensory details. Let your readers hear the bustling markets, smell the alien flowers, feel the rough cobblestones. This helps to create a truly immersive experience for your readers. And one final note, consistency is key in world building. Ensure the rules of your world are clear and stick to them. Nothing pulls a reader out of a story faster than a world that contradicts itself. A well-crafted world can elevate your story from ordinary to extraordinary. It can draw readers in and make them lose themselves in the pages of your book. So spend some time crafting your world and watch your story come alive. We are now on to the fifth and final ingredient of crafting a bestseller story, and that is a riveting plot. The plot is the series of events that makes up your story. It's the journey that your characters go through to achieve their goals, or fail trying. And while a compelling protagonist can make your readers fall in love with your story, a riveting plot will keep them on the edge of their seats. A good starting point for how to build this plot is the video series I mentioned before, the one we created analyzing the Fellowship of the Ring, of which a link is placed in the description field. Hence, I won't go over all that information again here. Go watch that video series. It's really, really helpful. So, with the plot added in, you have it there. 5 crucial ingredients that go into making a best-selling story: compelling protagonists, high stakes, conflict, immersive world, and a riveting plot. While there isn't a foolproof recipe for writing a bestseller, these elements go a long way in creating a story that resonates with readers and keeps them turning the pages. Remember, writing a great story isn't about ticking some boxes. It's about creating an engaging and emotional journey for your readers. So use these ingredients that I've mentioned in this video as a guide, but don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for your story and your writing style. Thank you for joining me in this discussion here. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with fellow writers. If you have any questions or thoughts about what I've mentioned, or if there is a topic that you would like to see us cover in the future, leave a comment below. I love hearing from you, and I always strive to make videos as useful a resource as possible for writers. Until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep creating unforgettable stories. This is Am Writing Fantasy signing out. Happy writing, everyone, and stay safe out there.